The Akai S5000, S6000 are the pinnacle of Akai rack samplers, and you should buy one. These puppies were released in 1998 and were the successor to the popular XL series, and they were whoppers of machines, rivaling the Emu Ultra series at the time. Up to 128 voices, DOS format support, massive LCD screens, 16 outs. I mean, these things were absolute workhorses. If you had the luxury of using previous Akai models, then you can definitely see that this new era Akai took everything they learned over the past decade and crammed it into this big, sexy box that kind of released at the turn of the century. Really, really powerful. Now, you can still go and grab one of these, the S5000, for about $500 on Reverb or eBay. They still go pretty cheap, especially compared to the other models. Now, here's the coolest part. In 2001, they released this USB expansion where you could plug a USB cable from the Akai directly into your PC and use a software program called AK.sys, Akai.sys, to control pretty much your entire S5000 or 6000. And this thing was revolutionary if you think about how you had to do this previously over SCSI. So this was the coolest part of the sampler, in my opinion. Now, when you plug this in over USB, the sampler shows up in your device manager. So it is hooked up, and through the drivers, you can then open the Akai.sys program and load that up. Now, this thing could be a little slow sometimes, a little finicky, but eventually, once you refresh, your sampler shows up within there, and you can start navigating that sampler. So you see a few things here, the memory. So what's actually loaded in your S5000, your multis, your programs, anything in memory. Or you can look at internal hard drives. So I have a SCSI hard drive in here, really slow to load. But once I open that, I can navigate all the files of the SCSI hard drive in my Akai from my computer. Then I can go into those folders, look at anything, my samples within here. I could do something like rename my samples directly from my computer, and it updates on my Akai immediately. Then I can even save these to my computer, so if you didn't want to back it up to SCSI, which sucks and fails all the time, you can save everything to your computer. Samples, programs, etc. So then I can load my samples into memory on the Akai. And so if I go to my memory samples, that sample's loaded, and I can now create programs and whatnot with it. You can alter some basic options in here. And then if you want to edit the sample further, Akai lets you link to any audio editor. So when you go to edit, I'm using SoundForge here, which is feature packed as well. You could use Recycle, whatever you want. But let's say you edit that sample in your editor, and when you save it, it would spit it back to the sampler and overwrite that sample. Really fucking cool. Then I can go into my programs, and I can create a new program from within here too for my 808 bass. You can also modify that program through this. That looks like an early version of a VST. So I'm going in, assigning my sample to a key group in that program, and I can alter all sorts of different parameters in there. Now, in that same vein of saving samples, I can save the programs to my computer as well. So let's say I spend a lot of time creating this program. SCSI sucks. You see right there, I just easily saved it to my desktop. So this thing is sweet. Then from there, I can create a multi, right? So I go in, create my multi, very simple. So my multi is going to contain all my programs. And then I have some basic properties there. So I can go in and edit and access the mixer. So as I'm playing a song on all MIDI out of the Akai, I have access to this mixer on my computer. And so I can change the faders, the volumes, the panning, the MIDI routing. Again, anything that you would typically have to control through the Akai hardware itself, you can do here. And it updates in real time. So you'll see as I'm dragging this fader on my Akai, those values are changing. So this is really a controller software, right? It's pretty powerful. And I haven't touched my Akai once physically. So you can see the power of this, just really cool stuff. And then if I wanted to take this a step further, I can of course save that multi to my computer as well. So I have a backup there. Now let's say I have samples on my computer and I want to get them to the Akai. I can just drag and drop them as you see right there. So I have a WAV file on my computer desktop, hot pants break, just drag and drop right into memory on the Akai. You don't have to mess with SCSI. It's amazing. Then I can go down to my SCSI hard drive and I can create new folders on it because this is DOS formatted. So I go in, I can create a new folder. It takes for fucking ever because it's a shitty SCSI drive that's probably going to blow up any day. But I'm doing this from my computer. So I'm creating a new folder on my hard drive that is inside the Akai over USB. So I can go into there and I can drag more WAV samples from my computer into this folder. So now they're saved on that hard drive over there. Really easy way to transfer samples from your computer to the Akai using this software that's included. Now this is a little weird. There's this show front panel option where it mimics the actual front panel of the Akai. So you can literally control everything through this UI here. This piece can get a little clunky. It's kind of a pain in the ass to use, not gonna lie, but it's still nice to have access to some of these things in here. For example, the multi-editing through just the Akai.sys program sucks. So you kind of have to bring in this front panel view here to make some options there. But again, literally any control that you would access physically, you can access digitally through the Akai.sys application. Very nice. Then you think about the workflow. You could be in your DAW making your song, and then you're easily alt-tabbing back and forth between Akai.sys and your DAW. So you're going in to your programs, you're making some changes to your 808 sound, then you're flipping back into your DAW, painting in some MIDI, setting up your MIDI channels on the different tracks. It just created this really interesting workflow where, again, you don't have to touch your S5000, your physical sampler. You're controlling this all digitally here, which is pretty powerful for the time. And I don't think there was anything else on the market ever in terms of rack samplers that had USB output, not even the Emu Ultras, if I recall. So everything was SCSI leading up to this point. And when they introduced this USB expansion to the 5000, 6000, really revolutionary. But unfortunately, that's as software samplers were kind of taking over. So maybe that's why this variant didn't see, the success that the other variants did. So sure, the thing doesn't sound like an S950 or an S1000, and honestly, that's fine. If you want something that is the pinnacle of hardware sampling technology, I honestly think the S5000 or 6000 are the right choice, even more so than the Z4 or the Z8. Even if you don't have an old computer to run the Akai.sys application, the front panel of the sampler is really easy to use. It has that big ass screen on it, so it's not as troublesome as the old models. I think this thing's great. Go pick one up while it's still cheap. Maybe a good option is to pair it with an old school sampler. So you have an S5000 and an S950. That way you get the best of both worlds. Peace out.